We do not learn from our experience. We learn from reflecting on our experience. John Dewey. Hi, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Misadventures of the Mind podcast, hosted by me, your favorite clinical child and adolescent psychologist from Aruba, alias Kaleg Nadal. Today is not technically the first episode back because last week, in case you've missed it, was the official first episode back in the new year. But that episode was our, new concept. I did take a poll on Instagram to ask, what is missing, what might be a good filler episode, for my anime nerds out there, you know what that means. But for my non-anime nerds out there, filler episode is really just, a non-canon episode. We have the regular episodes, so the longer formatted episodes such as this one, and then we have the short form episodes such as the one from last week. And the short form episodes are really just there for a pick-me-up to get you through your day, your week, your weekend, So everything that I talk about in that episode, in the short form episode, is more positive, more uplifting, more inspirational, more motivational. If you're feeling like your week has been a little bit tough, or you feel like you're in a slump, that's a good episode to listen to. I don't want to make this intro too long, so I'm gonna get right into it, and we're going to talk about the misadventure of the mind of this week's episode. And for my new listeners, hi, welcome to the community that talks about life, talks about emotions, talks about mental health, obviously, and we talk about literally everything in between, everything that might be deemed a stigma, might be deemed abnormal, might be deemed like something that you need to keep hush hush. I'm here to talk about it. So per every episode, there's a misadventure of the mind. And again, if you're new to the concept, new to the term, it really just means an idea or a feeling, a belief that you might have that is kind of hindering your growth, hindering your belief in yourself. It's kind of like a maze, kind of like a labyrinth that keeps you in a funk, keeps you in a loop, a negative loop at that, in your mind that kind of like holds you back. So without further ado, the misadventure of the mind of this week's episode is the one that convinces you that your year, 2024, was not one filled. I'm going to repeat it and also give a little bit of context just because I feel like it could be tricky to understand, but not fully. And what I mean with this misadventure of the mind is that, sometimes we get caught up in the keep going mindset. After you get something done, you need to just move on to the next one and move on to the next one, and you kind of get lost in that pattern, lost in that loop. So then we never really take time to stop and smell the roses, as it were, stop and reflect. There's a song, Stop and Stare, from One Republic, and it's a really, really old song, and low-key my age is showing, but the lyrics of it goes something like this. Stop and stare, I think I'm moving, but I go nowhere. So, it's literally saying like you think you're moving, but you're not going anywhere, So with the keep going, keep moving mindset is a good thing if you're talking about resilience. However, it can also backfire if you don't stop and stare, stop and smell the roses, stop and reflect. Hence why the misadventure of this week's mind is the one that convinces you or convinced you that your last year wasn't as filled. And by filled, I mean filled with activity, filled with hope, filled with dreams, filled with, achievements or goals set, maybe filled with love, filled with compassion for not just others, but also for yourself. because that is something that tends to get put on the back burner. If I'm being real, if I'm being honest, I feel like sometimes we have the tendency to care for other people before we start caring for ourselves, which is a positive thing, of course, caring for others. However, if it starts to become your default setting, it can easily turn into something negative where, you just become self-neglecting. But that's a conversation for another day. Today, let me just try to stay focused. But to keep it pushing, to keep it moving, so new follower, this is my favorite part because knowledge is power, knowledge is key. I love learning. So what better to do than to hit up the good friend of the pod, Merriam-Webster, to understand and fully get a grasp on the word reflecting or self-reflection. I'm gonna use them interchangeably, but the bottom line is, and the gist of it is, the word to reflect. And what does that mean? So, per Merriam-Webster, to reflect very simply means to realize or to consider. And there was another definition that I thought was really interesting as well, because it kind of encompasses the essence of kind of self-reflection. Because when you reflect in, like, let's say physics, it's like light bouncing back, right? And so the light is really reflecting off of the mirror or wall or window, whatever. And in the Merriam-Webster definition, it has to become mirrored, to produce a mirrored-like image. So it really means that what you put out is also what you would receive back in. To self-reflect also means that you would examine your own thoughts and feelings. So it really is the ability to examine and evaluate. And to examine also means to consider, to realize, but to evaluate means that you're almost putting a measurement on said reflection. So you're measuring whether or not this was something positive or negative, and to what extent it was either or. And I thought that that's really interesting because in life, to be able to reflect means technically also being able to be honest with yourself and to really put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable, not to others, but to yourself, to really evaluate what you have done, what you have experienced, what you have felt, what you believed, your core beliefs. And that's very psychological of me to really, mention that specific term, because what happens is that everything that you experience, everything that you've witnessed and that you've kind of internalized does become a core belief. And if you love movies, animated movies at that, you've probably heard of or seen Inside Out 2, 1 or 2, but 2 specifically, they talk about core beliefs, and they talk about how when we evaluate a situation or our feelings or our thoughts, that then becomes what we interpret from the situation, and in turn, as a result, becomes a core belief. And that core belief can be positive, it can be neutral, it can be negative. And if we have too many moments where we interpret a neutral situation as negative, then as a result, we'll ultimately get a negative outlook on life because of our core belief, because of our interpretation of this situation. As I'm explaining this to you, I immediately think about my dad, because he always says there's no there's no good or bad, it's just a lesson. It's a lesson to be learned. And, as a kid, like me and my brother, you would be like, yeah, okay, sure. But I feel bad though. Like this was a bad situation. However, now I do feel like, your parents don't just say things just to say things, It's really from a place of wisdom. And that's not to say that they disregarded our feelings, but it's more so helping us to change our outlook on life. It's more so to change our mindset. And now I do have like moments where I'm like, no, this was objectively a negative experience. But at the same time, I don't just take that negativity and run with it. I always try to find the silver lining, always try to find okay, what was the lesson in this negative situation? It doesn't always happen immediately because let's be real, sometimes life really knocks you down. And with you being down, it's like, okay, you can't keep kicking a dead horse, or you can't beat up a dead horse. Whatever the saying is, you know what I'm trying to say. So like if I'm already down, there's no way that life will continue, smacking me with some like negative experiences, right? But that's not always what happens. Sometimes, it can be an accumulation of just really negative interpreted situations and feelings. So but to reflect on that and to be able to kind of come out of that situation is very tough. It's a skill. It's not something that I feel like comes naturally. It is something that you need to practice and, I don't know, find your own way to do it, because everyone has like a different way of doing it. So, it's definitely something that you can fine tune, and I will get back to that because I won't leave you hanging. But before I get into like what are the benefits and what are the ways to reflect, I of course also just did a quick little web search on reflecting and self-reflection. So I also have the more psychological definition of self-reflection, and I found it on the website Psychology Today. This is a web journal that I often use. So per Psychology Today, self-reflection is defined by pausing amidst the storm, considering your morals, your values, and the type of person that you are in the eye of adversity. So it's really just, again, taking a moment to reflect, or taking a moment to examine and evaluate, taking a moment to really sit down and think about, okay, what just happened? What was the situation? Who was involved? How did I feel? How did I react? It's really just taking that moment to gather information that has already passed, but then to kind of put it into, very abstractly said, put it into like puzzle pieces and break it down into different puzzle pieces, because there was a full image present. But to break it down into puzzle pieces also gives you the reflective power to really see, okay, this was a factor that played a role, this was a factor that played a role, this is how I reacted, this is how I felt because of the interaction between the different factors. And it also continued to say that it is a continual process. And when I read that, I thought, absolutely, this isn't something that you just do once and then you never do it again. This is something that you should keep doing. I was gonna say have to keep doing, but nobody has to do anything. You are the master of your life. You are the expert of your life. Therefore, you are free to choose what you want to do with your life. It also mentioned that self-reflection is also kind of like a mental mirror. Similar to what Merriam-Webster said, it is the ability to become mirror-like. It is like a reflection, like how the moon reflects on the water. It's when you look into the mirror, it's not technically you, it is a reflection of you. It's a way of really putting yourself kind of in a vulnerable state, because this is what you would look like. This is the image, this is the person that people see when they look at you. And also continual process, because it's so beneficial. And why, pray tell, is it so beneficial, Ali? Well, great question. I have some answers for you. I don't have all of the answers because I don't want to give the impression that I have all of the answers. Like, it's also on you to examine and evaluate what I'm saying, because maybe you might agree, maybe you might disagree, maybe you might partially agree, and maybe you have a different perspective. So like I always say, like I always encourage, this is a conversation from me to you, you to me. So if you feel like, there's something that I missed, or there's something that I could have said differently, always let me know. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube comments, Spotify comments, Apple Podcast comments. But anyways, in the last week, I spoke to some of my clients, and, as they're talking, I saw that they would reflect more. And I told them, like, listen, the fact that you're telling me this now is a win. Like, this is a dub for you, because self-awareness isn't something that happens naturally. It isn't an innate skill. Like, people don't like to do it because people fear facing the truth. And if you fear facing the truth, you will avoid reflecting on yourself. You will avoid becoming more self-aware. You will avoid becoming vulnerable or putting yourself in a vulnerable state as to where you would kind of avoid who you are. But if you take time to become self-aware, like, a lot more things become, insightful. It becomes clear. You have a better understanding of yourself. Like, you gain that insight to help you go forward. It's you becoming in tune with yourself. Because without self-awareness, kind of just go through the motions rather than actually deciding intentionally, rather than living an intentional life. You just live by going through the motions. You live by, day by day, which is not a bad thing. However, if, let's say, you get feedback from a person, or they say, like, hey, what you did wasn't really nice, or, I feel like such and such way when you said this and this, and you lack self-awareness, you will lash out and you will react in a very defensive manner rather than understanding and seeing what they meant. If someone says, like, oh, you're so selfish, and you're like, absolutely not, I'm not selfish, how dare you? And then you're squabbling because you don't realize that you've, say, 80% of the time put your own needs before others. Someone calling you selfish will fly over your head. It'll fall on deaf ears. You won't understand what they're talking about, and that will make you go into that defensive mode where you need to protect yourself. You need to be like, they're coming for my character, and how dare they, But that ties in as well very perfectly with the second answer I have for you. And the second benefit is an increased EQ. So that's emotional intelligence. The ability to self-reflect, the ability to realize who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, also helps you become empathic. It also helps you see something and understand something from somebody else's perspective. And that will also translate into better communication. Because if you're getting feedback, right? If someone is telling you, like, hey, I didn't really like what you did, whatever time, because you did such and such, and then you're like, oh crap, I'm so sorry, like, I didn't realize that. See, that already is like, oh, hold on, wait, we can have a conversation about how to do this better. We can actually talk about like what got you to that point that you reacted that way, or, said something or behaved in this way. But if you lack self-awareness and you don't reflect on your own behavior, or, you don't realize and evaluate your own, let's say, the hand that you played in this game, then that conversation becomes null and void. Your ability to actually be present in that conversation is non-existent. It just won't happen. Next one, resolution and decision making. So this one was a tricky one just because it's not that black and white as self-awareness and effective communication, because resolution and decision making is tough. Just point blank period, it's tough. It's not tough because of the concept, but it's tough because of everything that plays a role in said decision making. When you're making little decisions but also big decisions, like, you always need to make sure that you're covering all of your bases. And maybe you're an impulsive person and you take decision making very like quickly and with no regard to anything. That's, like, if it works for you, it works for you. What I do want to point out though, with self-reflection, like, you can make better decisions, because the thing is that the types of decisions you make are oftentimes very similar in everything. So even like to the type of water that you buy at the supermarket, the type of groceries that you buy, to the type of friends that you have, and the types of relationships that you've established, like, everything boils down to how much did you self-reflect? How much thought did you put into this decision before making it? How many times have you made the same exact move? And this could be both positive and negative, but specifically for the negative decisions that you have made, there's always a pattern, a reoccurring pattern. However, if you don't self-reflect, and if you don't take time to stop, pause, think, process, examine, and evaluate the steps and the patterns that you've made over the course of years, then that pattern just stays the same, and it's an ongoing loop. And you might feel like, okay, this is the only thing that matters, or this is the only way that I know how to operate. However, if you just take 5 minutes to reflect on the reason, or even the awareness of the pattern and the type of pattern it is, it'll give you so much more clarity that you would be able to also kind of come out of that cycle or loop. And then you can think about, okay, what might be the best course of action now? What might be the pattern, the new pattern that I kind of want to adopt? So self-reflection can be very simple. It also can be very tricky, because maybe you don't know where to start and you don't know how to do it. That's okay. Like I said, I do have some answers. I don't have all of the answers, but I do have some of them. So just a recap before we get into that, the benefits or impact of self-reflection. Number one, self-awareness, and you get clarity and understanding, really just insight with yourself. Number two, increased emotional intelligence, and that would translate into effective communication. And lastly, it can help you with resolutions, decision making, and it can help you spot patterns, old patterns, to help you create new ones. So now that we've talked about the benefits and the impact of self-reflection, now you're probably wondering, like, okay, how, when, in what way, what do I do? Like I said, I have some answers. I don't have all of them. I would encourage you to have like an experimentation with the way how you reflect and the timing of your reflection, because it can be a short one, it could be a long one, it could be a combination of both. And with that, I mean really just the timing of it. So the duration of the reflection, the process of reflecting. Like a short one would literally be at the end of your workday, you just think back like, okay, what went well today? What didn't go well? And then that's like 5 minutes because it's fresh in your memory. There's recency bias. So if you evaluate your day, that's a lot easier than if you were to evaluate like a year, for example. I started off this episode by saying, we're going to reflect on 2024, but that's 365 days. Well, last year, 366 days. 366 versus 1. Yeah, you'll need more than 5 minutes for that. But the point is that you don't have to make it like a full-on thing. It can literally be at the end of your workday or school day, or maybe you had an off day. What did you do? Did you go to the grocery store? Did you catch a movie? Did you sleep? Did you read a book? Did you watch Netflix? I don't know. Just reflect on your day. How was your day? What were you grateful for? And that's something that I try to also do with my husband at home, and also like my little brother whenever we're on a call. I'm like, okay guys, so what are we grateful for? How was your week? What did we learn? Something super simple. Make it like a continual process, because it is a continual process. So you can do it daily, you can do it weekly. At the end of the week, okay, how was your week from Monday to Friday, or from Monday to Saturday, or Tuesday to Saturday, whatever, just weekly, just sit down and think for yourself, how was my week? How did I feel in the environments that I was in? What were my highs? What were my lows? On Instagram, I try to always have a weekly check-in, a midweek check-in, but also a end of week check-in, because maybe your Monday started off great, or if you're a person that feels like the Sunday is the beginning of the week, no shade to you, no judgment. We listen and we don't judge. But, if your week starts on a Sunday rather than the Monday, could have started high or low during the week. Maybe there were some peaks, maybe some lows. How do you feel during the midweek? And then at the end of the week, you made it through. How do you feel now? Did it get better? Did it get worse? Did it stay the same? Because that's also an option. And if it did stay the same, or got worse, or got better, okay, what did we learn? What are we grateful for? But also, what lesson did you learn? It could also be a quarterly reflection. So at the end of, let's say, a 3-month mark, what were the goals that you set for those 3 months, and where are they now? It could also be a yearly check-in or reflection. Like I said, at the end of the year, at the end of each year, or at the beginning of each year, I always reflect on my year. What did I do? I often set goals, or try to have like a list of things that I would like to achieve throughout the year, or try to do throughout the year. And at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the new year, I tend to reflect like, okay, I had this and this in motion, or I had this and this in my head. How many of this did I achieve? How many of this did I manage to do? And sometimes what happens is you might set a goal for a year. Let's say in the beginning of 2024, I would have like a list of goals, things that I want to achieve. And then when I reflect back on the year, I realized like, hey, I kind of achieved some of these goals, but also I achieved some goals that I had in previous years. So then it also gives me like time and the kind of moment, like the really like light bulb moment where it's like, sometimes a goal might take longer than a year, and that's okay. A goal or an activity, an event or whatever might take more than just the 366 days of planning for me to actually, have it done and complete and achieved. And that's also okay. So back to the best way to do it. Find what worked for you. For me, I used to do like a daily check-in, and I would like write in my journal and stuff like that, but I don't do the daily anymore. I might try to pick that back up because I do have a gratitude journal and I do really love it. And the prompts that are in that gratitude journal, it's super simple and it takes maybe like 10 or 15 minutes. So I do want to be more intentional with that. But what also helps is my 1 line a day journal. And I've had it now for, I think I got it in 2022. If I'm not mistaken. And that also helps me keep track of the things that I've done, and also helps me keep track of the things that I've done in the previous year on the same day. So that's like a really nice like yearly reflection type of thing, but that's only like if I've done something, and then I'll write like in that 1 line a day journal. And then I have like my regular journal, and that one I use more irregularly. Like I don't have like a set time to do it. I just, if my head is full or if something is coming up, then I would write in my journal. Or if I feel like, I need to have like an outlet to release the thing, then I would write in my journal. But what I do keep regular is my yearly reflection. I always reflect on the year past and then look to the future for the new year. Maybe what I do want to start doing is maintaining like that weekly self-reflection. Maybe I might do that. But getting into like the methods and ways of reflecting, I've mentioned like one already, and that's journaling. Like I love journaling. I recommend journaling anytime I can because it is just a great way to really put into words. And even if you don't have the right words, like it's just your words on paper. It can be a digital journal, so you don't even need to like write. If you want to type, that's fine. It can be a audio journal, so you don't even need to write or type. You can just speak into your phone. Different ways of journaling. Maybe you like to collect images, so then you can do that instead. But just find a way to get it out of your mind, out of your system. There's also conversational, ways of reflecting where you get someone who you're close with or someone who you really trust and like feel like it's a judgment-free zone that you can really just pour yourself into that conversation and say like, hey, I just want to take this time to like reflect and think about like the past week, month, year, whatever. And then you just mention things, and as the conversation is going, you'll also realize like more things are coming up, and as more things come up, the more you'll also question yourself, not in a bad way, but really just in a neutral way, like, I did this and this. I wonder how come I did that. And then, the task or what you can ask your recipient to do is just to listen. Maybe they can ask questions for clarity, like clarifying questions, or like, tell me more, or what do you mean by that, or something of that nature. But it's supposed to stay neutral and judgment free. It's supposed to stay a safe space where you can just pour yourself into yourself really, and let them have like that mirror like aspect. Another way to reflect is getting like a prompt journal or app. I have this app called Presently, and I actually love this app because you can fill it in every day if you want to, if you want to keep that up, but it has like a prompt for anything. So today it has like, what are you grateful for? There are other prompts like, what memory are you grateful for? Who inspires you? What song or music are you grateful for? What was the most beautiful thing you saw on this day? So you can use different apps like that. That's the one that I like the most, but there are numerous apps that you can download on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet that also have these like reflective prompts, these reflective questions that help make the reflection process a little bit easier. So you can, the sky is the limit, and honestly just use all of the resources that you have. And if you feel like you've noticed or you've come across like an emotion or feeling that is really tough to manage or to really understand, I mean, there's always the option of seeking professional help just to pinpoint where these thoughts came from, pinpoint where this behavior came from. And then with your mental health professional, you can also create a plan to get through it or to make it better, or whatever your goal for that specific feeling or behavior is. But again, sky is the limit, and do what's best for you. Really reflect on the best way that you would like to reflect. Think about the way that fits your lifestyle, fits your personality, fits the goal that you want to achieve for yourself, fits the type of self-awareness that, or the level of self-awareness that you currently have. Because if you're someone who already self-reflect, then a prompt app is probably not for you. But if you're new to the game and you don't really know how to or where to start reflecting and building that self-awareness, then an app or a journal with prompts will help you with that. So just find what works for you. So with that, I want to leave you with a little question, a reflective prompt for both the simple and already advanced self-reflector. And that question is, reflect on your 2024. Specifically, what is the greatest lesson you've learned? And also, what is the best memory you had of 2024? And how I mentioned greatest lesson and best memory? Because we're going to keep it positive. We do have a tendency of falling into that negative loop, that negative outlook. I want to encourage everyone to see the bright side of it, see the lesson in the negative experience, see the lesson and the moment of growth in a less than positive situation. Because you only get stronger and you only get better from all of the adversity that you had to experience. And per the title of the episode, 2024, a year filled, I chose that intentionally as well, because at the beginning of the year, I posted an image with the, manifestation. So it was really like a 2024 wish for my fellow loyal listeners, and that is to have a year filled. And the post said, may your year be filled with joy, filled with peace, filled with wisdom, filled with happiness, filled with all your heart's desires. And I feel like that's kind of what I did. I feel like for me, if I were to reflect on my year, I feel like it was filled with all of those positive things, but it was also filled with lessons. It was also filled with one of my greatest lessons. And I'm not sure if I'm ready to share it yet with you, but think for yourself, what was the greatest lesson that you've learned from your 2024? You don't have to tell me. You can also keep it to yourself, but if you do want to share, I'm always open to listen. I'm always eager to hear your thought processes, your perspective, because sometimes, when I have these fill in the blank prompts on the Instagram, seeing your comments and seeing your answers literally brings me joy. So more of that in 2025. More engagement, more involvement, more togetherness, and more community. That's my desire. But anyhow, we've talked about a lot today. We talked about what reflection means, what it means in terms of the regular dictionary definition, but then also what it means in the psychological world, the benefits and the impact of self-reflecting, and also ways on how to do it. And it's like the psychological definition says, it's a continual process. So, you can start today, you can start tomorrow, you can start next week, but, try to make it a habit. Try to really make it a continual process that never stops. But, like I said, this is the end. And what I like to do is what I always like to do, send you off with a little bit of positivity, a little bit of light for your day, your week, your weekend, or your month. I think today I'm going to start off with the biblical affirmation, and that can be found in Proverbs chapter 27, verse 19, and it goes as such. As water reflects the face, so one's life reflects the heart. That's deep, I'm not gonna lie. To kind of balance it out a little bit, the affirmation that I have for today, for my non-Bible readers, because, if you're not a Bible reader, if you're not about that life, that's all good. That's fine. I got something for you too. And it goes as such. I will cherish each moment. I will look to every day with hope and peace. There is enough time to dream and follow my dreams. And I hope you like that one, because I feel like that one low-key also ties in with the affirmative episode of last week. If you haven't had a time to check it out, because the affirmation of that episode, the gist of it at least, is I could dream, or I can have big dreams. Dream big, dream your biggest dream. But anyhow, I hope that this episode was informative. It was a way to self-reflect on whether or not you self-reflect, you know what I mean? And if it did tickle your brain, you know what to do. Listen, I'm gonna have to be serious with you right now. Listen, like the video on YouTube, like the post on Instagram, follow the Instagram actually, as a matter of fact, at Misadventures of the Mind. Comment on the episodes, share the episodes on whatever platforms you want to share things on, and also share it with your friends and family. Listen, this year is a year of growth, and I want to grow. I want to talk to more people, welcome them into the community, and also have these honest, real conversations. Because at the end of the day, life is gonna life. But what's important is that you are not afraid when that happens. You are not afraid of when life knocks you down. Because you can self-reflect, you're self-aware, you know where your strengths are. And you can dream big. So, share it with your friends and families. Okay, I'm done. But thank you once again for tuning in to the Misadventures of the Mind podcast. You can find me anywhere and everywhere, all of your favorite streaming platforms. I can officially say that there's an episode every single week. You will hear my voice. You're welcome. It's a new year. It's a new day. It's a new podcast. And I hope to inform you on another episode. Okay, thanks. Bye.